Hi, everyone. Just want to welcome everybody. My name's Howard Wedgell. I'm one of the organizers of this conference, Resilience 2020. And I appreciate you guys taking the time. We have with us, Israel Rahman. After serving in the IDF, Israel started his professional career in sales before shifting to digital marketing and founding Those Marketers. Today, having helped businesses and solopreneurs achieve incredible growth using a blend of creativity and data, Israel is known for his unique approach to marketing in the digital age. We look forward to hearing from Israel. Thank you so much, Israel. Take care.
Thank you, Howard. I really appreciate you introducing me like that. And thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I hope that throughout this presentation, we could have both a good time, a good conversation, and that we could all learn something. Of course, that's the ultimate goal here. And I want to start off, before we get into anything, I just want to set some guidelines, because I like doing things a little bit differently than everybody else. So first of all, I know that throughout this call, people are going to have questions. And of course, questions are appreciated, and I want to help you guys, and I want to give you answers when I can. But I understand, of course, that not all questions can be typed out. Sometimes you just need to vocalize your question. So what I'm going to do in the chat box, I'm going to put a phone number, and that is actually a business WhatsApp for me. And what I'm going to suggest is, if you do have a question at any point in the call, and you just want to vocalize it, send a voice note to that number. It's in the comments right now, 845-243-3023. And what I'll try to do is, get to your question during the call. But if I can't, if we run out of time, then I'll send you a response sometime today or tomorrow as soon as we can. So let's jump into it a little bit. I'm going to share my screen. Just give me one moment here. All right. So before I begin, obviously you're asking who's Israel Rahman, and I may be the small kid on the block in this conference, but a little bit about myself, just so you know who you're talking to. My name is Israel. I like to view myself as an entrepreneur, a digital marketer, and I'm the founder of Those Marketers, along with my incredible partners. And what I do for my clients is, besides for, as I wrote here, making them more awesome, is I try to find the strategy that works best for the customer, as opposed to saying, hey, this is what works for everybody, or this is what works for another business. You really have to look at your individual business, and more importantly, your individual customer. So I like to tell a story to really exemplify this. Oh, almost forgot. Before we get to that story. So before I started in the professional world, this was my life beforehand. I served in the IDF. I was a combat soldier, and there are many lessons that you learn from the IDF, from ethics to work ethic and everything in between. But the one thing that really stuck out to me is accuracy. So if you're familiar with how a military unit works, you have a machine gunner, you have a grenader, you have a sharpshooter, and you have a sniper. And you have, riflemen and everybody in between. And everybody, depending on their specialty or their personality or their traits, you assign them to the job or they call it tafkid, that works best for your personality. So the person who's big and strong and can carry a lot of weight is generally going to be the machine gunner. The guy who has an incredible shot but is a little reserved and calm and patient is going to be the sniper, while the person who's also a great shot but is a little bit more active, a little bit more front-facing, is going to be the sharpshooter. Now, what a sharpshooter does in combat is, when your team is facing an enemy target or a building, hostiles, the sharpshooter takes a position and very accurately targets very specific individuals, those who are, of course, the largest threats, and takes them out with complete accuracy. Now, different than the sniper, they're in the front. The hostile can see them. And in a way, you want to be a sharpshooter in your business. You don't want to be the sniper where no one can see you and then just target consumers or target a customer. You want to be front facing. You want your customers to be able to see you, but you want to target them with pinpoint accuracy. And that's good. Unlike Sharpshooter, which pinpoints, accuracy and does that to take the customer out or take the hostile out. Here you want to bring the customer in, right? So there is a small difference, but the theories still are still the same. So going back to what I was saying before, there's a story that I like to share when we talk about target audience, and that's the story of Sixto Rodriguez. I heard the story when I was in high school, and this has just carried me through my professional world and through my career. So Sixto Rodriguez was a musician. There's actually a documentary about him called Searching for Sugar Man. Some of you might have seen. Sixto puts out an album. He lives in Detroit, puts out an album, a music album, and by all means, it's a complete failure. He doesn't sell a whole lot of albums, maybe 5, 10, 15 albums here in the US. And he has a bit of an audience outside of the US and overseas in Australia. But by all means, his musical career is a complete failure. And what he does, he loses his wife over it. He gets divorced, and he survives the rest of his years in a construction job, taking care of his 3 daughters. And that's pretty much his, that's been his life. Nothing special, nothing incredible. However, unknown to Sixto, an individual had actually taken his album to South Africa with them on a trip. And there they played it for their family members, and they loved it. And before you know it, this album was being reproduced on a mass scale in South Africa, millions of copies being sold. His albums on the radio constantly. And actually, South Africa was going through apartheid at the time and the anti-apartheid movement. And Sixto's music was all about anti-establishment, anti-political music. And that really, the South African market really connected with that music, with those messages. So unknown to him, he's a massive superstar in South Africa. And to them, because he'd only put out 1 album or 2 albums, they viewed Sixto as a legend, but someone who had already passed. And there were rumors. There was a rumor that he was a failure and he lit himself on fire on stage, committing suicide. There were many different variations of this story, but everyone in South Africa believed Sixto, this legend, was dead. It's almost like Elvis Presley for the average folk. Well, some Swedish documentarians were looking into Sixto's story. How did he really die? And they actually put out a website, trying to find out information. And Sixto's own daughter found this website and said, I think you're talking about my dad. So they get on a phone call with the daughter, and they're very excited. We're finally speaking to Sixto's daughter, and they said, well, what happened to your dad? And she says, well, if you want, you can ask him yourself. He'll be home later tonight. And to them, that's like hearing, Elvis is alive. It's like hearing Tupac is alive. It's like hearing, the legend, the Beatles, John Lennon is still alive, which was a major shock. And eventually they did get in contact with Sixto, and they brought him out to South Africa. And they held a concert for him. They sold out an entire stadium. If you look into it, what's funny is people actually bought tickets not believing that he was actually alive. They thought it was a hoax or somebody who's posing as Sixto. No one truly believed Sixto was alive until he got on stage, and there was a 10-minute standing ovation for him before he even started singing. So why am I telling you this story? Well, this is all about target audience. See, Sixto, by all means, was a failure, but he was a failure in front of one audience, and that was the US audience. In another audience, which was more his target audience, which was an audience that recognized and connected with his message and him as a personality, that's the audience that he was a superstar in front of. And what's funny is often people tell me when they hear this, well, that can't happen nowadays. And the reality is it has. If you haven't haven't heard of Dennis Lloyd, I would recommend you look into his story as well. These sort of things happen all the time where you believe that you're a failure, you believe that you can't, you can't break through to your audience, when in fact you're just not looking at the correct audience. So before we go into a little deeper about the target audience, just to define it. So a target audience, obviously, it's your particular group of people that you're targeting with your product, your service, your book, your, whatever your business provides, or as an individual, you may have target audience as well, whether it be, your personal brand. Sometimes doctors, lawyers, they have, as an individual, they have an audience who want to work with them. So that's who your target audience is. Now, when you know who your target audience is, suddenly everything kind of clicks into place. And if you use the information that you have about your target audience, you can really not only get through to them, but you can get through to them cheaper, in a way that connects with them on an emotional level, and in a way that really makes them feel like you and them are one, have the same values, have the same goals, and therefore, of course, is more likely for them to purchase from you. Now, one thing I'd like to mention, I've been to a lot of conferences, I've been to a lot of these events, and often there's a lot of general advice that we get. So throughout this presentation, my goal is to try to give you actionable steps, actionable items, real tools and real resources that you can use to actually do what we're talking about here. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. And again, just a reminder, if anyone does have any questions, you can always text it in the chat box, and or you can message us on WhatsApp, send us a voice note to the phone number that is listed in the chat. Okay, so let's get back to target audience. 100% of the people who are successful had to have done so with the target audience. And the reality is because if people don't take the money out of their pocket and give it to you, you're not going to be successful. And whatever business you have, whatever product or service you provide, you need to have an audience. So why cast a wide net when you can cast a very small net and really hit the people who are going to actually purchase versus just everyone, right? We need to have an audience. And the reality is you want the people who are going to buy, you don't want the waste. So let's look at an example of this. So I like to use this example because it's very simple to understand. I want everybody here to imagine you own a company that creates a very high-end female product. So I like to use handbags. It's a very simple one. So you make a very, very high-end luxury, designer handbag, and you want to promote your handbag. So you decide, the Brooklyn Bridge, which actually gets about 880,000 visitors a week between cars and foot traffic, you're going to put this billboard up, and you're going to spend approximately $10,000 per week. So great, $10,000, 880,000. That seems like a great number. It seems like there's a lot of visitors. This could potentially be good. But let's actually break this down. So how many of these people are actually relevant, right? So we're going to say 880,000 people. How many people notice and read your billboard? People are driving. People are on their way to do things. So we're going to go very conservatively. These are estimates. These are not actual numbers. And we'll get to why these are actual numbers in a little bit. So we're going to say 50%, and now we're left with 440,000 visitors, and we paid $10,000, but for 50% of the audience. Well, how many are the appropriate gender for your product? Now you may say, well, sometimes a husband wants to buy, a gift for their wife or boyfriend, girlfriend. So there are sometimes overlap, but we're going to, again, on average, we're going to say 50% because again, truck drivers are predominantly men, taxi drivers are predominantly men, and a lot of that vehicle traffic is that. So 50% is an estimate, and now we're left with 220,000 visitors. And we paid $10,000, but only for 25% of that audience. And then we asked the question, well, how many are the right age for your product? See, millennials, for example, may have a different view on handbags than someone who's, who's a boomer or someone who's a senior. And of course, anybody under the age of 18 generally doesn't, high schoolers don't carry a backpack. they're not very often carrying a handbag. And the same thing goes with college students. So we're again going to say 50%. And now we're left with 110,000 visitors a week. But again, this is a luxury product. This is a high-end, expensive handbag. So how many have the right income level for your product? And again, we're going to say very conservatively 50%. So now we've spent $10,000 for 6.25% of the audience, which is only 55,000 people. Well, then how many people are actually interested in the product? They may be the right age, they might be the right gender, but how many people are actually interested in buying a luxury designer handbag? So again, we're going to say, all right, 50%, and we're left with 27,500, and we paid 10,000 for 3.125% of the audience. Well, remember, this is a billboard. You can't just click a billboard like you can click something online. Well, so how many people take the time to actually visit your site or seek information about your product, look into it, see pricing, things like that? And that's an extra step for your customer. So we're going to say, let's say, 50%. So we're left with 13,750 relevant visitors a week, and we spent 10,000 for 1.56% of the audience. But again, how many will actually make a purchase? So they have, they're the right audience, and they may have actually looked into your product. But you know what? Maybe they use your competitors. Maybe they're not a fan of your style. So how many are going to actually make a purchase? We're going to say again 50%. And here's what we're left with. We have 6,875 relevant visitors every week. We spent $10,000, but we're not even getting 1% of the audience as relevant audience. Our cost per acquisition, if all 6,875 are actually purchasing, so we're at $1.45 per acquisition. However, and here's the big however, you don't have any data. All of what I've just been talking about is hearsay, because there's no actual data when you have a billboard, right? I can tell you how many cars, I can't tell you how many people are the right gender, I can't tell you how many people have the right income, I can't tell you those things because they're just random people driving through, driving past the bridge. Now there are certain ways to get some data. There's not a lot that you can get. And of course, there are other variables to consider besides for income and gender and whatnot. There are other variables. However, this point stands as you're left with very little information, and you've spent a lot of money for very little results. And this is just when you think about the fact over 99% of the audience was wasted. Do you really want that waste every single time? You only needed that small percentage, under 1% of that audience. So instead of spending your money trying to cast this wide net with a billboard, you're actually going to focus on that specific target audience, and you're going to eliminate all of that waste. So how do we do that? Well, we do that with digital advertising. So Facebook, Google, all these platforms allow you to select the exact interest, demographics, even income levels, interests, luxury items. You can actually pinpoint the exact customer that you want. And now, besides for being able to target them, you're only paying when somebody clicks. You're able to retarget them once they show interest. When you go online and you check out one thing, and suddenly there's advertisements for that product everywhere you go. And the truth is, customers often will look at this and say, what, I don't feel like I have privacy, and it's kind of scary that you can do this. Well, the reality is you've showed interest in a product. You are now a target audience. So once you go to that website, there's a small tool. It's called Facebook Pixel. There's a Google Pixel. Even LinkedIn has a Pixel. And you can install those onto your website. So what ends up happening is when a customer goes to your website, it pings their information, and it directly correlates that person and that IP address to their Facebook account or other Google searches. And therefore, once they go on Facebook or one of Facebook's partners, they're going to start seeing your ads again. Obviously, this costs money, but it enables you to keep that person in your reach. Next, you're able to target them with where they get their information. So if you actually know your target audience, and you know for a fact that your target audience is on LinkedIn, or your target audience is on Google, your target audience or YouTube, or they're on Facebook, right? You can advertise where your customer is getting their information, because that's where they're looking to find businesses like you. Now you get to be that business that's in front. And with Google, just to touch on this, so when you advertise on Facebook, you're also advertising on Instagram. When you advertise with Google, you're also advertising with YouTube. One of the incredible things about advertising with YouTube is I can advertise when somebody shows an interest. Let's say, for example, I sell woodworking equipment, and somebody who's going on videos on how to create a certain piece of furniture, how to create something without a specific tool. Well, now when they go on that YouTube video, I can hit them with an ad about my tools because they're looking into woodworking. And guess what? Those first 5 seconds, I know we all hate it when YouTube just says, you have to wait those 5 seconds until you can skip that ad, and it's just waiting, and finally. But you know what? Those 5 seconds are free. Until the customer clicks and actually goes to your website, you're not actually paying for that advertisement. So you're getting free views. You see, in the case of the billboard, you might say, well, I get awareness. Customers are still seeing my product. Guess what? On Facebook, on Google, they're going to see you too, but you're not paying for it. You're not paying for that waste. So there's actually those added benefits when you start advertising online. So of course, 100% of the people who are going to see your ad are relevant. So now here, I like to go into this part and say, okay, who is your actual target audience? Now, before I do that, I'm going to put up a link in the comments so you all can have this. This is a public drive link, and that's a persona worksheet. So you can work use this worksheet to develop your own persona. And what a persona is really taking your target audience and actually making it one specific person. So you want to say this specific person, whether it's, Wendy Woodworker, or, however you want to do it, Mortgage Mordecai, you can name the actual person, develop this persona. This is the ideal person that I would want to sell my products to. So here are the things that actually are included in this and that you want to look at. And in a minute, we're going to actually go into how you start figuring out these small pieces so that way you can leverage online ads. See, as a company, for example, me and my partner, we provide these sort of services: SEO, pay-per-click, online advertising, social media. We do these for customers. But I can't tell you how many times I will speak to a customer or a business and they don't have this figured out. They say, you know what, just advertise for me, right? Especially in insular communities like the Jewish community, where you have the weekly magazines, the local weeklies, or monthly magazines. You might think, oh, those are great opportunities. Well, you may have your target audience. Your target audience may fit in the demographic of a Jewish, a Jewish business or a Jewish audience, or they may fit into another audience for another magazine. However, that may not be the only piece of information. That's not the only criteria for what your target audience is. You can't just say, I want to target all, African Americans in the U.S. I want to target all Latinos in the U.S. Because every person is different. You have to really look at the individual. And I think with what's going on in the world today, we really need to put a focus on the individual. So that translates here as well to marketing, focusing on the individual. So let's say we're going to look at demographic first. So what age would be the appropriate age for your product, right? Not anybody who fits, but what specifically is your best bet for a customer when it comes to age. Next, we're going to look at gender. Your product may be for both genders. Maybe, regardless of the gender, you can still serve them. However, your female customer versus your male customer might be different people in general. They may have other values, and they may be actually interacting or buying from your business for a completely different reason other than, of course, their gender. It could be their occupation. It could be, their challenges. So we want to look at everything here. So gender, we want to look at occupation. What's their income level? What's their family and marital status? How many kids do they have, right? You want to look at all this information, and that's going to help you target your consumer. Next, we're going to look at goals and values. So what does your customer want to achieve, right? What are their goals? What are they aiming towards? What are they striving for? What do they believe, and what are they committed to? Now, of course, if you know what they want to achieve, you know what their goal is, well, great. You can figure out a way to help them get to your goal. The truth is, a lot of businesses will create a product and then develop the target audience for that product. The reality is, if you know the audience that you want to serve, and you actually look into who this target audience is and their psychology, their personality, then you're able to develop unlimited amount of products and services to actually help them with their, with their goals. Next, we'll look at challenges and pain points. So they have these goals, they have these beliefs. What's challenging them from what's stopping them? What are their hurdles from accomplishing these goals? What's the problems? What's causing them stress? Right? These are all going to give you the information to develop your product. Next is objections and roles. So now you know who your customer is. You know what their challenges are, and you know what you're offering to them. But they might have a specific personality. Like for me, for example, I when it comes to buying things, I don't care so much about the price. I care about the value. What am I getting for the dollar that I'm paying? So when I have a person who's trying to sell me something, I might say, you know what? I don't think that the value is here. I don't think that, even though the price is really good, I just don't think that this is valuable for me right now. That might be my objection. So you would have to know, all right, this type of person, this personality, when you think about more senior, right-wing, farmer out in Texas somewhere, they're very, tough, hard, straightforward. They kind of think they know everything. And that's a bit of a generalization, but there are personas like that. So you might have to look at who's that customer, what's their objections, and then of course their role. Even if they are, even if they're interested in you, even if they have the right gender, demographics, goals, values, they might not be a decision maker. They might be the secretary, and of course that makes a difference in the decision-making process. You want to make sure that the person that that's in your target audience actually has decision-making power. But sometimes, for example, in the medical world, I used to do work in healthcare, in actually lab sales. We used to do genetic testing for hereditary cancer risk, among other diseases. Right, so getting to the doctor obviously is the ultimate goal, but sometimes you need to build a good relationship with the office manager or the receptionist, because those people are going to actually get you to your end goal, being the doctor. So you want to build a persona around those people as well. Where do they fit into the decision-making process, and how is that going to play into the rest of your decision-making process, and the rest of your sales process? And of course, the last thing you want to look at is, all right, so I know who this person is, I know everything about them, I know what I can provide to them, but I need to get in front of them in order to actually sell them their service, in order for them to know that I exist. So where are they getting their information from? So maybe they're, like a lot of entrepreneurs, let's, they read books, or they have specific gurus. For me, for example, I love Gary Vee or Seth Godin, right? Those are, gurus for me. I like books about personal development and, business books, among other things. So those would all play into where my sources of information are. Another one would be conferences. I mean, we're all here right now, right? So everybody who's actually sitting here in this this presentation right now, one of your sources of information is Resilience 2020, right? That's going to help me identify where I can reach you. And if I know where I can reach you, now I have a full picture. I know what interests you, so I know what type of content to create to try to get your attention. I know what your values and goals are, so I know what product to create and what services to provide to get your attention. I know what type of customer service to provide, because I know how your personality, how you communicate. And all those pieces of information really come together to help you figure out your target audience. And of course, once you know your target audience, you can target them, you can serve them, you can understand who they are, and business is a lot easier from there. So before I go any further, I do want to take questions because we are at the halfway point. I want to take some questions, and then we'll go into the next part, which is actually how you can use some tools online, besides for the advertising platforms, to actually recognize and identify who your target audience is. So I do see we have a couple questions on WhatsApp. I'm going to try to play them out loud if possible. Hopefully you guys can hear it. And here we go. So the first one comes from, I believe this is Chaim Loeb. Let's see what we got.
For your talk today. My question is, if your target audience is Orthodox Jewish men, is there a way to target that when it comes to social media and ads and things like that?
Great question. Okay, Chaim. So Chaim's question was, when it comes to especially Orthodox Jewish people, how do you target them online? And this is a question I get all the time because, well, we're Orthodox Jewish and a lot of our customers are. So the first thing you want to look at when you're targeting the Jewish community, you can't go on let's say Facebook ads and say I want to target Jewish people. It's actually it would be illegal for them to do that just because that's that can be considered discriminatory among a bunch of other things. And actually after the 2016 election, there was a lot of regulations that were put on when it comes on digital advertising to prevent us from reaching out to people with specific beliefs, which we can understand. However, there's always other ways of doing that. So here's a couple examples. When you're advertising on Facebook, Facebook doesn't just say, all right, give me your age, gender, and location. They may say, they ask for what interests do they have. And you can say, you know what, I want people who are interested in the Israeli Defense Forces, for example. And now you've limited your audience to people who are more leaning towards being Jewish, not necessarily Orthodox Jewish, but being Jewish. Now you can then you can go location-wise. All right, I know that Jews, for example, live in very specific communities. And this goes, by the way, for any insular community, not just Orthodox Jewish. Well, I know, for example, I grew up in Muncie, New York. Now I live in Teaneck, but both cities or towns are full of Jews. So I can actually, when you go into Facebook and you actually put up an ad, you can, instead of picking a town or a locality, you can actually pick a specific address. And you can say, I want 1, 2, 10, 15, 20 miles from this specific address. So it's going to create a radius around that area. So if, for example, Muncie is your target, well, you drop your location dead center in Muncie and you give it a 5, or 2 mile radius. And if there's specific areas, specific neighborhoods in Muncie that are, say, a specific, income level, or, they have a different, say, belief system, or, they're a different denomination of Orthodox Judaism, well, you can target them, each individually. You can say, you know what, giving Muncie as an example, because it's a place I know very well, Wesley Hills versus Central Muncie versus South Muncie all have different demographics, right? And the same thing goes with Manhattan, right? Downtown Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, Uptown Manhattan, very different demographics. So you can actually geofence, it's called, those locations and hit them with targeted advertising. And actually, I'm going to give you guys a little bonus while I'm at it here. When we're talking about geolocation, one thing that I would normally do if we were in a conference where we're all sitting in the same room, I would tell you all now, pull out your phones and go on Facebook. Because what I can do is when I'm at a conference, I'll put a geofence on the actual location where everybody is. And you can set it. See, everything is customizable. Facebook has so much data. They have your phone's location. They have your interests. They have, when you switched it from being, you switch your profile from being single to engaged or engaged to married, those are all data points. And I can target every one of those data points. I have a friend who's a wedding photographer. Well, we can run an ad where once somebody marks on Facebook that they're engaged, boom, that's the trigger, and now they start getting hit with ads for wedding photography. So similarly, I can set it a location based by a few different parameters. I can say either people who live in this location, I can do people who are not from this location who are passing through this location, right? So now if I'm doing that, I'm saying people who are passing through and people who are interested in business, whose employment or their job title is business owner or CEO, right? I can actually target everybody who's in one specific location. And that you can take a step further. If you're a CPG brand, for example, and you're trying to get into a major retailer, right? You can target that retailer's headquarters with your targeted advertisements. So now instead of just the buyer for that specific retailer seeing your product on, or just connecting with them, now the vice president of that company actually sees your ad, and the analysts and the marketing people, everybody starts seeing your ad, which enables you to get more visibility with those customers. All right, we're going to jump to the next question. Oh, that was not a question. I appreciate whoever said thank you to me on the WhatsApp. Okay, so if anybody has any other questions, feel free to throw them into the comments or send me a WhatsApp message if you want to vocalize your question. You can send it to 845-243-3023, and I'm going to put that up on the chat again. Okay, so let's look at the actual details. What do we want to figure out, and how we want to find that information out about your specific target audience? So the number one thing that you can do is listen. I like to say, if you listen to them speak, or listen to them speak so you can talk how they think, right? You want to listen to your customers, and you want to listen to them when they give you feedback. You want to listen to them on your phone calls. You want to listen to them on social media. And it's not just listening to your customers. Once you're developing your audience persona, you can, let's say, go on Instagram and search a hashtag that is relevant to your business and start looking at how people communicate about this specific topic or your type of product or service. How do they communicate about it online? What are people saying? How do people communicate to each other online, right? And that's going to help you really develop this audience persona. And actually, just a little exercise that I like to do. Where is it? Here on my desktop. That's me and my beautiful wife. We've been married almost a year. So we have this little exercise about listening. So I've been giving a presentation for about 38 minutes now, and I've given you a lot of information about myself throughout this this presentation. And if you've been listening, this would have been very easy for you to develop, right? What is my possible objections? As I said, it's about value, not worth. Things that I like. Seth Godin, Gary Vee. I'm on WhatsApp, as you know. I'm talking about WhatsApp here a few times. When it comes to books, personal development, I've mentioned who my gurus are during this call, right? So all this information is going to help you really develop. Obviously, I didn't include all the information because I don't want you targeting me online yet. But you can actually develop your persona by just listening to your customers, listen to them talk, listen to them in whatever platform they're on, and you'll be able to really develop this audience persona. You could actually put a picture of me there as well. So sorry, we're not there yet. So how do we actually we do this? And there's another, how do we actually develop this persona? There's another tool that I want to give you guys. And this is a reference sheet. I'm putting it into the comments again. So again, a Tools for Insights page. So we're going to put it up here. This is just a list of various tools that you can use to develop your audience insights. and develop your audience. And one of the best tools, in my opinion, is Facebook Audience Insights. So we're going to jump to that right now. Okay. So for those of you who are not familiar with what Facebook Audience Insights is, it's basically a very simple platform where you can start looking at different data on Facebook and develop, who your audience is. You can actually create audiences here and then use those audiences in your advertisements. So being as we already talked about luxury, women's product, luxury handbags. So we're going to use that as our example here. So we're going to say when it comes to country or region, let's do New York, just sticking to the same example. So New York, New York. And we're going to do age. We're going to say, you know what, any, because we want to find out what's the best demographic for our product. Now, being as our product is a women's product more than a men's product, and yes, there are going to be some men who would purchase this as a gift, but we're going to eliminate the men for now, because this way we can ensure that these people are somewhat interested in our product. And now we go to interests, and this is really where the magic happens. So we want to say, all right, interest. Let's look at maybe Chanel. Chanel is another luxury brand, right? So we want to click Chanel. Interest, additional interest, Chanel, right? Now we're going to do Coach. And you'll see, by the way, there's a few of them. Some of these are job titles, right? You're a coach. Some of them will be employers. Oh, that's still, sorry. Some of them will be employers. I'm still getting the same one. Right, now we got the one that's the interest. All right, that's the correct one. We're going to do the next one, Hermes, I think it's called, right? So now we have a few different luxury providers here, but now we're going to take it a step further. What about luxury goods or luxury lifestyle, right? These are interests, and then when it comes to shopping, we can actually look at that. What are their shopping interests? So maybe they like, online shopping, discount stores. Well, somebody who's buying a high-end product isn't looking for the online store, for the discount store, but we have an online store where we sell our products. So we want them to be interested in online shopping, right? We want them to be, well, let's see, beauty. Well, somebody who's into luxury products, luxury items, may be into spas, cosmetics, beauty salons. We're going to use spas as a good one here, and then we could take it to another level, right? Let's go to clothing, right? They have to be interested in women's clothing, and if we just search women's, you'll see there's a bunch of different interests that you can look at that are all related to to women, to really any specific type of person, any interest, any any brand, any type of product, even B2B products. You can do this all via Google Insights. Facebook Audience Insights. Well, what about fashion accessories? Obviously, they need to be interested in handbags if we're going to get them to buy a handbag. So now we're gonna say, this is enough for right now. Let's look at the actual results of our audience. So we know 100% of them are women, but how many of them are between the different ages here? So we see our majority here is between 25 to 34. Okay, that's probably our best bet. Next, we want to look at relationship status. Now we see that a majority of them, again, are married. Majority of them have college level education, right? Now we can start putting together small pieces, right? Somebody who's generally between the ages of 25 to 34. Someone who's more likely that they're married, more likely they went to college. Now we can also look at what's their job title. Facebook literally gives you all the information you need. So of our audience, we see here that, as you can see, the 71%, right? A lot of these people are legal service, involved in legal services, and they're 71% more likely to be involved in legal services than other Facebook users, right? They're involved in community and social services, arts, media, sports, and entertainment, sports, and media, and the sales, business and finance, administrative services, management, right? So we can look at all the different potential job titles that these people have. And now we can also take it a step further. When you're targeting somebody, what are their interests, right? Besides for the interests that we looked at, we want to look at what other interests they have. And one second here, Facebook's acting a little off. Okay, sometimes you'll find, this is a 2.5 to 3 million people. Sometimes you won't get that much information about page likes. But let's look at some of the other things. Activity, right? How often are they going to actually click on links? Well, hey, they're more likely than your average. There's a rate of 30, which means that they're more likely than other Facebook users to actually be clicking on your ads. What devices do they use? They're more likely to be on mobile than desktop. And guess what? When you go on your Facebook ad, you can actually select, I only want this ad to be seen by mobile users. I only want this ad to be seen by, by desktop users. So you can actually figure out exactly who your audience is and then target them. And then I would take it a step further. So now that we've looked at this, we've seen that our majority is 25 to 34. So now, why don't I go here, and I'm going to change the age to 25 to 34. Okay, so now obviously 100% of them are between 25 and 34, but now I can actually look at the specifics of that individual person, right? Between the 25 to 34, it's actually more likely for them to be married than, for them to be single than married. And that's different than what we had before when we did any audience. So now we're getting more nitty gritty. We're going to look more specific, right? They're still more likely to have college. There's actually now, it went from 70 to 82% more likely to be involved in legal services, 80% more likely to be involved in healthcare and medical services, right? So now we're able to really delve a lot deeper into the exact, it's still not giving me page likes, but we're able to delve very specific into the interests of these people. Now let's take it a little bit further. So Facebook, once you advertise, I mentioned this earlier, there's something called the Facebook pixel. So with the Facebook pixel, every time somebody visits your site, they're going to get pinged. And there's actually a little Chrome extension that I have here called Facebook Pixel Helper. So really, if you go to any website, out there in the world, we can go to thosemarketers.com. That's our company website. So when you go to our website, you'll see that there's a little Facebook Pixel Helper. It's lit up. There's a number 2. So I know that there's 2 pixels on this website. And this is actually useful when I'm doing competitor research for our clients, looking at what their competitors are doing, and also what our potential clients are doing, so we can know where the opportunities or where their pitfalls are and how we can help them. But when you click on the analytics for your pixel, so we actually just launched this website a couple weeks ago. And when you just launch a website, generally your pixel's not going to have a lot of data. And the more people that come to your website, the more data you'll have. But you're going to start being able to see, okay, let's look at people demographics. All right, who's the demographics of the people and what age and gender? So obviously there's not a lot of data here on this one because this is a brand new website that we just relaunched. But when you do it for your own website, after a little bit of time, you're going to be able to look at not just, okay, these are the people I'm targeting with my advertisements. These are where I've been spending my money on advertising, but actually who's gotten to my site, who's it actually worked on, who's gone to my website regardless of my Facebook ads. See, if someone just clicks on searches on Google for those marketers and goes onto our website, they will still be pinged by that pixel. So those are some of the tools that you can use, and there's also a bunch of other tools here that I've listed out for you guys. I highly recommend that you visit that this document here, and you can download it. You can add it to your drive, whatever you want to do. But this will give you some information that you can use to develop that. And then, of course, once you've figured out who your audience is, then you want to hit them with your ads. Just a couple tips here. I know everybody at one point has tried what I call hope marketing, which is you throw something on the wall, you hope it sticks. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. Many times it's very creative, it's entertaining, it's fun, but it doesn't necessarily drive sales. And ultimately, when it comes to marketing, the only thing that matters, as I say, tachlis is one of my favorite words, which means brass tacks in English. Tachlis, it doesn't drive sales per se. While direct response marketing, where you talk about the benefits of your product, you give your unique selling proposition, you give a discount or another type of offer, and most importantly, you track everything, which you can do through Facebook ads and other platforms like that. So this way, you can get a direct response. And also, we talked about with the billboard, you can't click on a billboard to go buy a product. You can click on a Facebook ad. You want to, again, talk about the benefits. When I say talking about benefits, a lot of companies make the mistake of talking about features. And I always say, I'm a big car guy, so I use this as an example. Remote start is a great feature. But why would someone buy remote start for your car? They buy it because when I wake up on a winter morning and I have to go to work, my car is warm and ready for me when I'm leaving, versus me having to sit there in the car and warm it up. So it's not the remote start that I'm buying. I'm buying the benefit of having that warm car when I walk in. So that's really what you want to focus on with your ads. So again, we have about 8 minutes left, so I want to open up for more questions if we have any. Again, if you do have questions, the best thing is either to ask it in the comments in the chat here, or if you have a question that you want to ask, that's you need to vocalize. Again, you can message it to 845-243-3023 on WhatsApp, and I will answer your questions for you. Even if it's after this talk, if you have any questions and want to talk about target audience or how you can advertise to your customer base online with the other platforms, we only really covered Facebook, Facebook ads and Facebook Insights on this call or in this presentation. But I'm happy to discuss this with anybody if you would like. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And again, open it up if anybody has any questions in the chat box. Okay, so actually I do see a question here from Ezra Fireworker. I did not notice that. I apologize for not getting to that sooner. So Ezra's question is, what is your suggestion on cost percentage to gross revenue annually to convert, say, 4 to 100 customers and clients? So I just want to preface this with saying every business is different. Every audience is different. And I don't want to tell you this is the percentage to generate that sort of business, because that percentage may be different for your business than another business. For example, if you're an Amazon seller who's trying to transfer your business from Amazon to your own website, it's going to take a lot more percent to try to get you market share than it's going to take for a business that's purely online. It's going to be different for a service-based business versus a product-based business. So all those things really matter. And my recommendation to everybody is if anybody tells you that there is a master key for digital marketing, that you just use this one type of, one platform or one type of campaign and you'll be good, they're lying to you. There is no master key. There's no secret formula. And honestly, there are people who will, quote, hack the system. In the reality, in the long run, it doesn't help you. often you may have a great short-term gains, but then the platform will come down, crack down on you, shut down your account sometimes, and in the long run, it's not going to help you. So you always want to have more of a long-term focus, a long-term play, and you want to look at each, which is what this whole presentation is about. You want to look at the individual, not just as your target audience, but also your business. You want to look at the individual, the data. Most importantly, you want to look at the data of your customer base. But I would also say, if you want to figure out percentage, best thing is try it out, test a couple things. So I would recommend you make an audience that's a very, very targeted audience, very small net, and a low budget. And then you want to do a targeted audience on a higher budget. And then you want to do a broad net on a low budget and a broad net on a high budget. And by doing so, by playing around, you can split test, which means you can create two ads that are almost the same, whether it be the differences the creative, or the differences the audience, or the differences the call to action, right? You can make those little variables. So you want to just test it out. And ultimately, that's any good marketer that is successful with a business, they'll tell you it wasn't day one that they just were like, hey, you know what, this is what's going to work. Put one campaign up and that was it. You constantly have to test things out. You constantly have to try to individualize it for your business and see what works best for you. And of course, companies like myself, you don't have to use us in any way. You can use a company that's best for you. But ultimately, you want to look at doing as much as you can test wise. And if you can't, then and if it's not your skill set, or if you don't have the time for it, then you can hire a company or an agency that can do those things for you. Again, so we have 3 more minutes. I just want to get, if anybody has any additional questions, now is the time. Just either WhatsApp us on 845-243-3223 or just message in the chat box.